Hello. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Are you guys?
Good afternoon.
You need coffee. You need like a caffeine drip. It's okay. All right. So, like she said, we're going to talk about women in tech, and we're also going to talk about women in business and diversity, because we're here and we have some smart ladies on the panel, and so we should really explore these topics in detail. So I want to start by hearing a little bit about each of your respective journeys very briefly. Perhaps the biggest obstacles that you had to deal with that you think you could attribute to being a woman. Like certain things, sometimes people are like, oh, it's so hard being a woman, but there's a lot of stuff that's just hard, no matter who you are and where you're from. It's just hard. Startups are hard. But there are some problems that you run into that are unique to being a woman. So if you can tell us a little bit about the journey that you've had and the challenges you ran into.
Good question. Well, actually, when I was about 7 or 8, I first learned to code, but there was not any teaching, any courses at all even thought about for young women. And now, sometime later, I've actually been doing my own startup. And it was incredibly hard to get any funding to get just a little bit of coding work done to finish the first proof of concept. And I ended up realizing that I'd spent a year trying to raise the finance, and I could actually have become a full stack developer in that time. But even though I'd actually reprogrammed my grandmother's computer when I was about 15, and I had, full top level first place, I'd never even thought about doing coding. And it actually struck me, I just got to do a course and I can learn this. And in the time that it took me to get quotes from developers, I was actually finishing the coding myself. So I think it was actually a lesson for me, as well as for everyone else, to stop underestimating myself. And in terms of the blocks that are very gendered, my whole career, I think it has been that underestimation, but also a very unique thing, and something that's increasingly being talked about in Silicon Valley area, is the sexualization that we're often seen as potential dates instead of potential business partners. And I get that constantly. We were just talking the other night about an instant where I was going to meet someone. I was standing with bags, and I said, so where are we going? Meaning, which office, or where can I move my bags? And this person said, I'm sorry, we're not going out. I didn't mean to meet you that way. And he presumed that I had meant going out on a date just because I'd said, well, where are we going, meaning which office? And it really stunned me, just that every single time, well, not every single time, but so many encounters are loaded with this gender. And the harassment, the sexual harassment is really common. And fortunately now we're being given opportunities to talk about it, so people are thinking about this. That's been something that for decades has not been talked about. Hope that helps.
It does. And tell everyone your name.
I'm Wendy Dent.
Just so that when we do Q&A, you know, and I'm Lisa.
Hi, I'm Evanna, and so I guess my background's a little bit mixed. Before I went off to university, I had moved around 20 times around the world, and so I kind of grew up with this notion that I was always going to be the minority and the most recognizable one. This conference is another example of that. And so I learned, I think, very early on to sort of embrace the fact that I'm different. But that also came with this defiance I had, which for a very long time, I refused to let any press. And I would literally tell them, no, I'm not doing an interview if there are two things that you're going to write about me. One is about how young I am. And two, if it's, things like, oh, she's only X years old and she has done this. Like, I want to be known for my work. Two is, I did not want to be labeled as a woman entrepreneur. I think, before this panel, we were on the same email thread, and I kind of sort of raised that point because I said, I want people to judge me based on my performance and not on the fact of how I look. But clearly that's not very realistic in this world. And so it's still something that I'm struggling with and seeing where I'm comfortable the most with that notion. And so the third thing I just want to say is, I'm going to just say it, the racial factor, right? Because I'm pretty sure we're like the rainbow coalition here. I'm not sure if it's on purpose or not, but I think that also sort of plays a role in how we're being perceived, especially when we're going for a business meeting. Are we sexualized, or do we immediately have these stereotypes that are imposed on us? So I kind of really want to dig into that on this panel. But I'm a technologist. I've started a couple of companies in the Middle East and Africa. I've been living in the Middle East and Africa for the past almost 5 years, first in Kenya and then being based out of Jordan. And I've worked in every single, I think, Middle Eastern, or every single country in the MENA region, plus Afghanistan, except for Yemen.
So I'm just going to double dutch in to piggyback on what you said. I completely agree with what you said. I think the boundary thing, I mean, there are a lot of men in here. First of all, can we give a round of applause to all the men in the room? Like, kudos to you for actually coming to watch women talk about being women, because a lot of you could have been like, I know what women are all about. But you decided to come and hang out with us. So, like, good on you for being here. Because I think a lot of this is going to have to start with men, like, evangelizing to other men about what's not appropriate. And I've dealt with the same thing, where I had a company that I started with a man, and then somewhere along the way he decided that we should date, and I did not agree. And then we had to dissolve the company. Like, we just went up in flames because we couldn't get on the same page about that. I was like, I'm here to make money, not love. And it didn't work out. And so I think it's really important that men understand their role in that. And if you're a man who's not a jerk, that you tell other men what's not appropriate, and you guys have these conversations, because it's not enough, like, women talking to other women is really preaching to the choir. I would imagine that every woman in here has a story of harassment, something inappropriate being said to her in what's supposed to be a professional environment. So I just wanted to make that point. Take it away.
Good. Reine Abbas, I'm co-founder of Wixel Studios, co-founder of Speaka Twins, and co-founder of Imagine Me. Well, I have a really long story, and but I will say it really in small story. I really worked hard to get what I'm now today, not because I'm a girl or a woman, because I worked hard. So this is first step for everyone here. Work hard, and you will get somewhere. Whatever you want. So it's a really funny story. My story that when I started my company, I was a really new entrepreneur. I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship, and I didn't know that our women are few in tech, where all this stuff, I didn't know about it. I really wanted to found my own company. I wanted to do games. I wanted to change a lot of things. But after 3 months, I got pregnant. And really, I forgot about being a woman, and I can get pregnant, you know. I forgot about all this because I really work hard. So when I saw the plus on the head, I was, I'm married. I forgot about, okay. I do sex sometimes, yes. So I'm pregnant. Oh my God, you know. So I'm new entrepreneur. Lot of meetings, lot of work, clients. So it was a really hard journey. Entrepreneur, new mom, new married person, but also a really small tip: nothing will get in your way. Really, my kids are my inspiration now. Everything I'm doing, it's because my kids, so nothing will get in your way. You can get married, you can be a wife, you can be a businesswoman, or anything you want, everything you want. You can do whatever you want in the same time. So don't listen to anyone. Don't listen to your society, not your mother especially. Don't listen to your mother, she will get in your way. I have a lot of things to talk about today. So there's a lot of challenges. Only work hard, only work really hard, and don't listen to your heart. You will get what you want.
Nicely done. All right, so let's take gender off the table. I don't want to talk about being a woman anymore. We all have boobs, and we're all women and can have babies, as some of us have found out the hard way.
I have 3 kids.
So, or 3 times she's found this out. She's a woman. So let's talk about other parts of being successful, because that's what this really is about. How did you decide what you were going to do when you decided you wanted to be an entrepreneur or have this career in tech? Because that could mean a lot of different things, right? You could have gone and taken a job at a big tech co. You could have gone out and done your own thing. Were you kind of drawn to what you did first? Did you see someone else doing it? How did it come to be?
I've been a film producer for a long time, and that actually is entrepreneurship. But I actually saw an opening in the market of something that wasn't being done, and I had an idea. I spoke to Harvard actually 4 or 5 years ago, and they said, that's fantastic, we'd love to house this at Harvard. Can you go and get some funding, get some venture capital? I was like, sure, I'll be right back. So I kind of fell into entrepreneurship because I had an idea that I was passionate about.
Except maybe not, right?
What do you
On the
mean?
funding piece, because so many women have a hard time raising money.
I didn't raise any money.
Okay.
I have had a hard time raising money, and I know I know billionaires even. I'm in the World Economic Forum, and I've been stunned, actually. And I've had people say to me, if you're a guy, you would have been funded 2 years ago. And I've seen the thing that I was pitching was, for a start, mapping media, and that was what Harvard offered to house, and now Periscope's come out with that. I'd actually pitched that at Web Summit. I'd been profiled by Financial Times. I couldn't get a cent. And that comes back to what I was saying. I ended up coding it myself because the problem becomes, and I do think this is a gender and a racial bias, that you're asked to prove yourself, where men get funded on potential, women only get funded sometimes on the proof, but the bar keeps being raised. So when a man is funded on a prototype, a woman's asked for the proof of concept. I got the proof of concept, then it's, okay, how many users? Is 100 users enough? It'd be, well, come back when it's your first 1,000. I'm sure when it's my first 1,000, but come back when it's your first 10,000, your first 100,000. Will it then be your first $100,000, your first million? No, you come back when it's 100 million. What is the proof? So I think we have to actually start setting some standards, some expectations when someone's coming for money, because the women do get judged differently. So I've had to find ways to achieve what I want by tenacity, determination, and doing things myself. When I do find the same standards for men, they've got the funding.
So I completely agree with that. And I think Evanna and I have had like a similar thing where we're triple minorities. We were young and women of color and entrepreneurs trying to do this thing. And it's funny, you brought up this point of not knowing what you didn't know. And if you don't know that there's a women in tech thing, you just kind of go and do it because that's what you want to do. And then all of a sudden you start to read articles and you realize there's a whole subculture around this thing. So Evanna, I wanted to know, in terms of you raising money for some of your projects and your ventures, was that a consideration for you? Did you hear some of the same things that she heard when she went out trying to raise money, like go get a gazillion users and $1 bazillion, and then maybe we'll give you $100?
Yeah, I think that's definitely correct. For my previous company, we raised probably the most seed round money sort of ever, especially for the Levant. We raised almost $500,000 on basically a demo and an MVP.
How did you do that?
I'm actually not proud of it at all. I know it was great for the region to have, for us to have Silicon Valley lead investors, but I think ultimately, this is a different conversation, but I think it actually just sort of perpetuated this myth that you actually need to raise money to get shit done. But anyway.
Beep. We don't have the beep machine. Beep.
Sorry. So going back to your question, right? When I arrived in the Valley, I was living in Jordan for about a year and a half, and I went back and I said, this is where the money is going to be because we're trying to set up a R&D center in Amman, which is like, there's no money in Jordan almost, unless you want to accept donor money. And so I went to Silicon Valley. I said, look, I'm American. The company is registered in Delaware, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember one of my mentors said, look, he sat me down along with my co-founder, although I was very much the face of the company in the States. So my co-founder is half Assyrian, half American. And he sat both of us and he said, look, neither one of you guys look like people who invest here. Not only, and then he looked at me, he's like, not only are you a minority, because East Asians are engineers, East Asians are not typically the head of anything, right? And when partners look for companies that they're trying to invest in, they want people who look like them because if you have to work with someone for 5-10 years, you better get along with that person. So there's almost this like unconscious thing where they try to look for people who are similar to them. And I didn't really fit into any of the molds. And so he turned to me and he said, so not only are you a racial minority, but you're also a female. And I think there's some ridiculous stats out there that's like 9% of companies that are founded by females get funded. 7, sorry.
7.
Yeah.
Like the absurdity of 7 in 2016.
Yeah. And I kind of just brushed it aside because I was really offended by that. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to hit up as many people as possible. And so I was also a little bit strategic. I actually did my homework and went down all the VC funds that would be strategic for our company. But at the same time, they had at least one minority board member or full partner.
That's brilliant. And I think that's what this whole conversation is really about. Not just like the griping of, oh, it's so hard, but like, how do we get around it? Because I think changing it is going to take a long time. And that's something that none of us have. Like, we need to move on and get our stuff done. So that's brilliant that you made that decision. Why did you make the decision to keep going and to figure it out versus saying they're rejecting me and so I should go off and do something else?
Because I didn't think of that.
It's a good answer because you didn't think of it.
Yeah.
I like that answer. So you named several companies when you introduced yourself, and you have 3 children. So sometimes people are like, I don't want to talk about work-life balance, but it matters because many times a woman is the primary caregiver for her children. And sometimes when people are thinking of starting companies, they're trying to decide whether to delay having children and whether they can pull off starting a business and also raising their children. So what are your thoughts on that?
First, I founded my gaming company in Lebanon. So this is the first crazy thing that I did. In Lebanon, there's no industry, gaming industry. And in 2008, entrepreneurship also, first, I didn't know about entrepreneurship. Second, no one was talking about this, or no one was helping entrepreneurs. So I was crazy. Everyone was, you're crazy, go get a safe work, safe salary. What you doing? So for me, I want to do games. This is how I started my own company. So in Lebanon, this is the crazy thing, crazy entrepreneur in Lebanon, married. But all this wasn't in my head, I wanted to do something. So this is first. Second, talking about investment, when I got my first investment, because first I was, funding my own company from my teaching in university and from clients, advert games for clients, so we had really big clients. And then in 2013, we got a funding, a big one. And the funny thing, at this time, I knew that we were few. Because from first prize I got, Women in Technology 2010, I knew there's something wrong. Why I got this prize? Why? Women, why? So I discovered that we are few in technology, few in gaming. I didn't care about that. I got the investment, and during my investment, I was pregnant with my second girl.
She didn't learn the first time. You see that?
It was by accident also. And yes, I was surprised. Pregnant? How? I don't know, I don't remember. Anyway, so during my pregnancy, the investor, during the everything, the talking, and before we sign, my belly was getting bigger, and their eyes also. My partners, their eyes was, she's pregnant again, her belly is getting bigger. The investment also, I saw the fear in their eyes. So I had to do really double effort to show everyone I'm here. I can't attend any meeting, every meeting. I have pains, I don't care, you know. I couldn't show that I was really, really tired. This is how I started to feel, you know, the challenges we have to show everyone that we can do it. We can do everything. I got the investment. It was really a big one. I was really happy. And I got it because, you know, I was working hard. Pregnant with one kid before. I wasn't working hard. This is really important. Don't think about... work hard, really work hard, you can get anything. My ideas was really great, my business plan was great, my planning for the next 10 years, so that's why I got the investment with my pregnancy, with my kid, and then I had the third one also. Wow. So really this is my tip. I have really big and long story, so I'll give you every time a little bit from my story. But Yes, this is. It was really hard and fun at the same time, and still hard, because I founded also another company. It's academy for kids to teach kids gaming, and really I'm focusing on girls this time. So all girls in my academy are for free, because you know sometimes when I started I asked mothers, give me your girls for free, and I didn't accept. Take my boys. Girls doing games? Why? Let her do ballet, you know, she has... So I started a revolution in my academy. Till now, all girls are for free. And also, I founded a new startup also. It's Imagine Me. And I got a fund. Not only fund, I got grant now. It's really new. I got a grant. Take $20,000 and do it. Because why? I had a really nice idea, and I really had nice business plan for this startup. So easily I got the $20,000 in Lebanon. Always remember this. It's really hard in Lebanon. It's really, everything is hard there. So yes, thank you. Yes.
I think you are inspiring, and thank you. I did want to say, I actually have to push back, though, that it's often said, if you work hard enough, though, you will get what you want, or you're working towards. I really disagree, and I think that's often used as a justification for why women haven't got the funding is, well, if you worked harder, if you said, well, I had a really great presentation, so I got the funding. If only it were that way, that the best projects got the funding and that the best people who worked hard enough did. But I do think there's inequality, which is why we're standing here, and we can no longer accept that women and other minorities work their butt off and don't get what they deserve. So we have to address that. I agree, and that's why I said I congratulate you. You're fantastic.
So no, it's not. I'm fantastic.
You understand.
It's really important.
It isn't. We all working really, really hard. It's just an issue to bring out.
I didn't get lucky. This is really important. Sometimes they say that you got lucky or someone helped you. They always, when a girl or a woman got what she wants, they get someone helped you, especially a man or anyone. So I didn't got lucky, really. But I know there's a lot of problems. I know there's a lot of walls in front of us, everywhere in the world, because I'm always invited to speak in Berlin last time. They were talking all day about the problems. Girls should be really pushed to get in technology. In Berlin, I'm talking. So it's everywhere in the world. I know there's a lot of difficulties, a lot of walls, a lot of, pressure. No one is helping, but I know why. I made a lot of studies about that. I know this is... the problem is education and how we are raised. We're not born with less options than men. We're not born less than men. We all born with creative, motivated, with all options. But you know, through the way education and how we are raised in our family, everywhere in the world, that's how girls will go another way than boys. The first day we're born, we are raised to be really. They would take care of us, and boy, they will leave him to be leader, to take care of his family. The first really small details in our life. I will give you an example.
So 1 second.
I know
Before
I
you give
talk
the
too
example,
much.
one second.
Break.
We're going to come back to family structures and raising girls and that in a second. But I want to go to Mark real quick. And then we're going to double dutch around to talk about pitching, because there was some success here. And it was like, and then I got the money. And it's like, but what happened in between? How did you get the money? So we're going to come back to that in a second. But Mark, a man, I want to hear your thoughts on this whole thing. Because most of the time when there is a Women in Tech, Women in Business panel, it's women talking about women. And as a man who's been in business for a long time and has had success, you've worked with women and you've had opportunities to see their capabilities. What do you think the biggest challenges are? Why do we continue to have this infrastructure problem with women being able to succeed in tech and business?
So and by way of background, so I founded my first company with the woman who became my wife. So I've been with her for 24 years. And we've worked together the whole time. Without her, none of my stuff would be possible. But what's interesting is how we complement each other. So there was about 1.5 years when she ran my company while I was running another company. And during that time, we built fantastic product, like really absolute world-class product, but didn't get a single customer. Because she didn't like selling stuff. So she focused on what she was good at, which was product, organization, but we didn't have a good balance in that company because she didn't sell anything. At the same time, when I was doing my company, I didn't have a woman working with me, so she was sort of in a different thing. So we were selling stuff, but we didn't actually have any product, which is also tricky, so you could raise money. So I'm a great believer in balance. And I think I'm also a huge believer in the importance of role models. If we go back 100 years in New York City, there weren't huge amounts of women entrepreneurs. If we go back even into Europe in the 1970s, there weren't a huge bunch of entrepreneurs. But something changed. And so I'm fascinated about the importance of role models, individuals that inspire. I think right now there are relatively few role models, so pretty much the only people that stand up, you have to follow them because there's nobody else to follow. Which means you either get sort of divided up into, are you the Sheryl Sandberg push, or you're a different model because there's only two to choose from. If I look at some specific things that I've done as an example and let others speak. So some of you may know of the Global Teacher Prize. So it's a $1 million prize for the world's best teacher. It's been running for 2 years. And this year, and it's like a Nobel Prize for teaching. And this year, the winner of the prize was a woman Palestinian teacher. Well, the choice of her was not deliberate, but if you look at the structure of the prize, that is deliberate. If you notice, and with that prize, there's a top 50 and a top 10, it's pretty much 50-50 men and women. If we look at the top 10, it's 50-50 men and women. And it just happens that 2 years in a row women have won. That wasn't an accident, I can promise you that, because I was running the strategy for the prize. It was not an accident. We pretty much put a quota in place. And what was fascinating about why the quota, so first of all, it's not the winner that's important. Everybody is a role model for their country. So we can pick out women here, but I also wanted to make a difference between music teachers, science teachers, math teachers, teachers from rich schools and poor schools. We needed to have role models for everything. So it was kind of like a box of chocolates, and you've got to have one of these, one of these, one of those. But the other thing was fascinating is that men and women describe themselves differently. So when we were looking at male applications, there would be, I've got a TV show, I've written the national course curriculum, and I'm freaking awesome. Oh, by the way, I love kids. And the women write their applications and say, my grandmother was a teacher, I have a daughter with special needs, teaching is about, oh, by the way, I've won Obama's Teacher of the Year prize 3 years in a row. And what we did is that it forced us as a prize committee and the others to reread the applications. Because before we knew it, we ended up with 7 men on the top 10 list, and we didn't know what was happening. So I do see that there are these biases that we have to overcome. I see that role modeling is a great way of doing it, and we need more and more role models to share. But we need different models, because it's not as though one size fits all. There are all kinds of different ways of being successful. So I think this is, and this is a good example of giving a stage for women to then talk about what they're doing, and thank you for inviting me.
So that ties nicely into what I wanted to talk about next, which was pitch strategies.
Can I make one comment?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. So it's actually something you said, which is about the quota system. And I have a very ambivalent, I can see a lot of the audience members too, have very ambivalent feelings about the quota system, right? Because having a 50-50 split is a great idea. But it's sort of, the problems that we're having with affirmative action in the States, which is that because there's this cap, you get, okay, so one example is in Kenya. I was there during the most recent election, and they have MP seats available for women. And they're literally jokes, right? Like, they're there because they have to fulfill a quota. But then what ended up happening is that they reflect poorly on actually legitimate women who do really good work. So then it gives this almost illusion to the men that, the women are only here because they have to be here, but they really don't do anything, right? And then so that reflects poorly on us as well. And so that's, what my sort of argument against the quota. But at the same time, I kind of see how it is also really.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because I do think that there becomes this kind of discount that people put on women who were given an opportunity because they were a woman versus being judged on work products.
Yeah, Mark and I,
disagree?
though, I disagree as well. And Mark and I are both actually in the World Economic Forum, and we have been chosen as young global leaders. And there's actually a very concerted effort as well, not an official quota, but to have 50%, to have gender equality. And I have to say, and I think, Mark, you'd agree, it has been outstanding in the difference that it has, that you actually have a cultural change where women are an accepted common part of the community. They're given authority, they're given opportunities, and I do think that the quota system actually has value in the short term to just change the ratio and equal it up a bit as a sort of kickstart towards equality, but not necessarily a permanent thing,
I
though.
actually agree with you. I don't think Evanna was saying that it has no merit at all. I think that what she was saying was that we have to make sure we're dealing with men who are emotionally intelligent enough to appreciate that a woman being in that position is because she still does great work, and that she's smart and she deserves to be there. It's not like we had to go and find women to be a part of this, right? Like, there are women who are smart who are doing that, which gets into the thing of pitching, which is what I want to make sure we get to before we go to Q&A. So.
Can I just say
Sure,
something
go
real
for it.
quick? Hi. I just wanted to mention that there was an interesting study that involved resumes that were being submitted to an HR, and specifically the names of the applicants was at issue. And on purpose, they had switched up the names. Either some of the names, they made it African-American sounding, other names, switched between gender, male and female. And what was interesting is that the body of the resumes remained the same, and the names were changed. And the names were actually a big part. I don't remember what the actual percentage was, but I know it made a huge difference in that when the same applicant with the same credentials, same schooling, same education, and same experience, but when it was a female or African-American sounding name, they were looked over. And I think that one of the things that we should consider is perhaps a blind HR system. Because a blind HR system where our names are not disclosed really speaks to what we have to offer. And I think that, when our names become a label that is used to close opportunities, I think that that's obviously a loss for everybody. So perhaps blinding applications would be, I think, the most appropriate way, and the most democratic way, as far as let's just look at what they have to offer. Forget about who they are, what their name is. This is, what they have to offer, whatever we're looking for. I just thought it was a really great idea.
Thank you for sharing. So I want to go ahead and double dutch into Q&A just to be mindful of the time. I know we're tight on time today, so.
I'm sorry, the quota and the affirmative action thing drives me up the wall. So I just wanted to ask a question, or propose maybe, that we discuss, maybe the problem is at which point in our systems we introduce this idea. Like when Ms. Abbas was talking about actually taking that affirmative action at a teaching level, when you're nurturing these young people, so that you're not giving them something that they're not, that they haven't earned. You know what I mean? That makes sense to me. But when you do it at a higher level, you're diluting the pool. It's not good for the field. It's not good for how we as women are perceived, and it creates this system that I don't feel like the opportunities are real. You're making people look at you like you're a trophy. You're creating the same problem and then applauding yourselves for being part of that problem. But in terms of affirmative action or quotas at a young level, of course, it will create so much opportunity. It will actually nurture this concept that we are equal, we are capable, and the first thing that you do with a girl is not give a doll and then a game to a boy. That makes sense.
I think it's a complex issue, right? It takes more than one approach in order to be successful.
Yeah, and I think you raise a really good point, which is that there are multiple levels of how we can tackle the problem, right? There's the very long term, which is something we haven't really talked about, which is a very high level, which is, okay, we're stuck in this structure and we can blame men for suppressing us, or we can even blame women suppressing other women, which, let's be honest, also happens. It's probably slightly more traumatic for us than women suppressing, than men suppressing women. And so how do you change that structure, right? And that's probably gonna be like a multi-generational effort that we need to start thinking about, because right now there are a lot of people talking about it, but I don't actually know anyone who's like slowly going to schools and saying, okay, let's get rid of this whole entire pink versus blue thing and like all that stuff. And then there are the very short-term fixes. And so I think the question about pitching that you had before that you want us to talk about, that's like, okay, well, we're stuck in this system, so in the very short term, how can we get around it? I know I didn't answer your question, but.
This is true, and this is what I'm doing actually. For me, in my study that I did for 3 years now, I discovered that really only education and how we are raising our kids, it will change everything. We will talk for years, without changing this, we'll change anything. And I will give some examples. I wanted to talk about it before. In my case, when I was working in DigiPen Institute of Technology, I was really working hard every day because I wanted to prove that, or to learn a lot of skills. And one day my mom told me, look, Reine, you're coming late every night and everyone is talking about us. You will have to come at home at 6 p.m. So for me, it wasn't saying what she's talking about. I'm really working hard only to learn, to do a lot of games, to learn coding, art, everything about games. I was employee, but I had this entrepreneurial spirit, if you want. And in this moment, my dad told my mom, let her do whatever she wants. Maybe she will do something in her life. So my dad was my support, not my mom. So for me, mothers are the problem. Really, mothers are the problem. We have to talk to mothers. Mothers.
On Mother's Day.
My mother and every mother. Yes, really, we should. In Lebanon, we invited 200 girls from different schools in one day, and we gave them more than 50 workshops in technology and everything. But I told all these girls, 200 girls, tomorrow if your mom will take you to a wedding fair, you will forget everything you learned today. So don't go with your mothers to this wedding fair. Please continue with this what you learned today, and you can get married. You can be a mother, but really do your dreams and learn skills, because we are raised not to work hard. I'm teaching for 14 years now in universities in Lebanon. My girl students, doesn't work hard. So every year I have to give a talk about this. Really work hard. I know you're not raised like this. Forget everything you learned from your parents, especially your mother, and work hard. Don't ask the boy beside you, what can I do? I didn't, So really, we can change. We have to change from the bottom. We will talk really for years, for girls and women. We can change if we're talking to a woman, if she's 20 years and up or 26 and up, it's hard to change her. We have to talk to girls and to mothers to change all this. Really, it's really important. Really, really, it's my study.
Agreed. Our time is up. And so I'm going to conclude here because clearly we could go until midnight with this conversation if we talked about all the different angles. Thank you for being such an attentive audience. Please give our panelists a hand. Yeah, and happy Mother's Day to all the moms.